Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I'm in beautiful Santa Monica, California. And let me tell you, we have an amazing panel up ahead of us. We got two guests. One is going to be launching a podcast soon himself, which we'll get into that a little bit. And another just launching a book as well. So we'll get into that as well. So let's have some fun. All right, so our first panelist, Tim Levy, is founder and CEO at TWYN. He's a proven track record with over $1.3 billion in total equity returns on 20 ventures founded or co-founded. Tim completed over $9 billion of film financing, distribution, acquisition, and production transactions involving 600 plus film and TV series. Films produced, financed, owned include parts of Jurassic, Pirates of the Caribbean, Bourne, Transformers, and the Iron Man franchises. Give it up for Tim. And Tim's the one with the podcast coming up soon. Yeah. I'm excited, man. All right, our next panelist, Philip Alberstat, is an Emmy-winning film and television producer, veteran entertainment lawyer, and investment banker steering the future of the media and entertainment industry. He's author of The Algorithm Always Wins, which was just released. Come on, give it up. And when we send out the recap video and all that, we're going to be sure to include some links for Philip, so we support him on that. But he told me it's already selling. It was a little bit of a soft launch, but we're breaking the news here today. And he's also author of other industry standards, including The Insider's Guide to Film, Finance, Law, and the Media, and The Content Maker's Handbook. He offers unmatched insights into the creator economy and disruption. So let's have some fun today, guys. Yeah. All right, we're gonna open this one. We're gonna open up this right up from the beginning. So, AI. We're all hearing about AI. We're all here to hear about AI. It's disrupting the entire chain. How's AI reshaping the film process from script to screen? Who wants to start?
Do you want me to go?
Sure, you go first.
Good evening, everyone. Really nice to be here to meet you all. So, just a little anecdote to start with. This evening, we lost one of our speakers, unfortunately, who fell unwell, and I reached out to some of my connections, one of whom is a head of strategy in a major studio. I won't mention either the name of the person or the studio. And she wrote back to me and she said, "Such a kind invitation, but I really don't know about financing and entertainment. I'm just in strategy." And to me, that was just a mind-blowing comment. How can you be in strategy and not understand its impact on financing? And I think it sums up where a lot of the industry sits right now. There is going to be a colossal impact on the entire entertainment industry, soup to nuts. And most people are burying their heads in the sand, hoping that it will go away. The unions will do the job. They'll protect us. Ultimately, they won't, because the cost savings that are going to come about through the changes that AI is going to generate are going to be so vast that it's just going to be a wave that overwhelms the entire entertainment industry. So where are we going to see those impacts first? Well, we're already seeing some of them. We're seeing some of them in companies like Amazon and Netflix, who are using data in very different ways as to how they target you, the consumer. We're seeing some of that in the development process starting already. We're going to see a lot of that in post-production, for example, simplifying and making much quicker the process of turning film into the finished product. I think the really interesting question is, what impact is this going to have on talent? Talent in front of the camera, talent running the camera. And I think it's too early to say. But if you think about it, typical film in a Hollywood world maybe costs $100 million. Roughly $50 million of that is the cost of actually making the film, and the other $50 million is the talent. Well, if I can reduce the talent cost from $50 million to nothing, say, that's a pretty seductive notion ultimately. So, profound impact, soup to nuts. It's going to take time, but time always runs quicker than we expect.
I find. Is it working? Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I talk about AI constantly, all day, hours and hours per day, but I have a different sort of perspective of AI. Right now, it's very early days. It's a productivity tool, and people are trying to figure out how to actually use it in the best way possible. What's interesting about it is that, I think everyone here probably has a subscription to ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or whatever it might be. The models are still fairly basic. So there's a lot of ingestion happening. And I'll tell you another anecdote. One of the platforms reached out to me. My background, I was a lawyer for many, many years. So I know the entertainment business. I know contracts very well. This platform said, we're looking for experts to help us create prompts and help us fool the AI. I said, well, what does that mean? They said, well, what happens is there's no reasoning. It's really just regurgitation of data that they're pulling into their algorithms. And so what's happening now, and all of you need to think about this, you may be an expert in your field. Eventually, one of these platforms is going to reach out to you, and they're going to want to hire you to actually teach their algorithm your expertise. And I thought about it. I thought, all right, so they want my expertise about drafting contracts and how do I create prompts. And so one of the things you need to think about now is how do you use prompts? People use ChatGPT and Claude. They say, I don't know, what's the population of whatever. That's just a simple prompt. What they're trying to create now is you have to do very sophisticated prompts with a lot of parameters around them. You have to think about, what are you actually asking? And you can't have open-ended questions because the algorithm itself gets confused. It won't be able to answer things. So what's happening is it's shaping. Everything's like forming right now. It's sort of like, maybe, it's like planting a seed. So we're at the stage right now where we're actually just planting the seeds. It's just starting to grow. So right now is actually a great opportunity for you to think about what you're good at, what's your superpower, how can you use your superpower, and how do you align it with a large language model or AI, and how does it make you more productive? And that's really kind of my take on AI right now.
Let's keep it on you for a minute, Phil. I like that you said algorithms. Are algorithms the new execs? Like, who's choosing on what's going to get made next?
Listen, data makes you really smart or really stupid. So you have to think about how do you use that data to actually make things a little bit better. So, but the interesting thing, so the book I just wrote, and I'm not here to talk just about my book, but the reason I wrote it is...
You can plug that book. We plug it, and this is recorded for everybody at home. I'll plug it for you.
What's happening is, so TikTok, YouTube, it's killing Hollywood. Hollywood is slow. It's slow to react. The barriers to entry for content creation are zero. They're really zero. So there's no committees. And what happens is you can test something, and if it works, then the algorithm helps it get better, and it gets more eyeballs, right? It's the attention economy. And that's what we're talking about. I like calling it the attention economy. But Hollywood, it goes through the development process. First, you have to do the deal with the agent or the author, and then it's very long and slow and tedious. And it's a little bit of a different medium, but it's so slow versus content that's being created out there. And everybody's a content maker now, right? So what happens is the algorithm, it'll tell you right away if it's working. If it's not, then you can pivot and you can try something else that's going to make it work, right? So whereas it's much slower developing a TV series or a feature film. So that's why it's important to actually think about how do you use data. And actually, I'll tell you another story. So I'm at a Halloween party with my kids and then with a bunch of parents, and there's a guy there who's a producer. And he said, hey, Phil, I hear you're very involved in AI. I said, yeah, it's something I do a lot, I'm involved with. He said, well, I'm using AI a lot now. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm developing films, like he's a film producer. And he said, what I do now is I'm starting to put prompts in to figure out does this genre work? Which studios like this genre? So he said, I'm using it to help me figure out who I'm going to pitch to, who I'm going to sell. I also try to figure out who the execs are that I'm pitching to find out what films they've actually worked on in the past. So it was interesting that he's actually using it. And I said, is it helpful? And he said, yeah, it is actually very helpful because it's helped me sort of hone my pitches. It's helped me focus on what I'm actually going to develop. So I'm looking at things I want to develop, and I'll plug them in by doing certain prompts and figure out, like, does it make sense for me to spend my time on this or try something else? So again,
How would that have been done before, though? Juxtapose that, just to give people an idea. Like, what would they have done?
It comes from your gut. I mean, it's a lot of gut instincts, right? I mean, Tim and I, we've known each other for 30 years. I was a lawyer, he was a financier, and we've worked on many, many films. And most of it was from people's gut. They'd say, I have a good feeling about this. And then my job, I'd package it and find a director and an actor. And Tim would be like, all right, that actor's worth this, they're worth that. The business has changed now. But again, you can use AI to figure out, which actors work, what their audience size is. So the data actually can help you.
Yeah, no question. The data is going to make a huge difference to the quality of the decisions that people are able to make using the tools. So all of you learn to use the tools. And that doesn't just mean ChatGPT. That means learn to use other tools in the AI ecosystem. You're going to need to, without question. Everyone is going to need to.
Yeah, I think, and the other thing for sort of a takeaway is that you need to understand how to prompt. The prompts are really, really important, right? So there's a lot of YouTube videos about how to figure out prompts and figure out how to actually use it in a smart way. Because there's the thing about AI and all these large language models is that there's no, they're very mechanical right now. It's such early days. That's why everyone's talking about artificial intelligence and being it actually, think about, you'll have a robot who actually can feel. That doesn't exist right now. They're trying to get there, but it's still, I say it's at least 5 years away before we get something that's actually a little bit more formidable, assuming that, the business doesn't blow up as well.
So this is something I think about a lot, is what happens when an actor's likeness can perform forever? If you think about in music, when we talk about royalties, and you see a lot of people selling royalties for individual songs in perpetuity, and BlackRock or these other big firms coming and buying them. What happens when I feel like at some point a likeness is going to be sold to perform forever?
Well, there exists already. I mean, there's avatars out there that are virtual influencers, right? So there's a lot of virtual influencers. What's interesting, what those companies are now working on, most of it's scripted. They're trying to figure out, how do you put enough inputs in so that person can actually respond in a more human-like manner, right? But also, they use 3D technology to make the faces. Now people are working on sort of 4D technology to make it much more, that doesn't have that weird kind of wiggle and squiggle of your face, making it much more lifelike. But no, it exists. There's agencies now that actually have virtual influencers.
Yeah, there's agencies which own rights they've bought from estates of deceased actors and performers, and they can license those rights to be used in entertainment content. So we're now in a situation where dead actors compete with live ones. Wow. And that's only going to continue.
I was in London, and I was showing people virtual studios and some of the post-production stuff. And I spoke with one of the companies, and they'd taken a very famous footballer, soccer player in England, and they basically had mapped his whole body, his face, all his expressions, because it's so he can do endorsements without actually being there for the endorsements. And that's happening now. So a lot of talent are actually figuring out their likeness, and they're capturing it, and it actually will last forever, weirdly. And eventually the large language models will be able to actually speak for that person. They can program it so that they can respond, they can talk about things.
Subject to being authorized by the talent.
And I guess maybe it's worth talking about copyright, right? Yeah. I mean, I think it was Sam Altman said, well, unless you tell us that we're allowed to, we're just going to use it. And obviously, all the agencies in town, all the big companies now push back saying, no, we don't give you the rights to do that. You have to ask us our permission. And that was sort of his unilateral decision. It's well reported what he's talked about. And again, I think the weight of copyright law will eventually come down on a lot of these companies. So it's something to keep an eye on.
So for AI in general, we're talking about costs coming down in some cases. Is this the golden age for like the indie creator? Like,
I would say not. I would say it's hard out there. If you're an indie filmmaker or content creator, it depends what you're making. I think film and television, traditional stuff, it's really tough. But if you're an influencer or if you're sort of an indie content creator, no, it's easy. This is like incredible technology in my phone. It's as good as it gets, right? But again, it's just figuring out like what's their niche, who's their audience. Again, it goes back to like, who are you trying to appeal to? I was talking to some of the sponsors tonight, and we were talking about, who's your audience? What is your true north? Like, what are you trying to accomplish, or what's the story you want to tell? But again, I think we're all storytellers now. We can actually easily tell a story with very little, with so much little use of technology. It's very easy.
I mean, I think that we are seeing, or we are entering an age where there's going to be a democratization of content making, so that anyone in their front room is going to be able to create incredibly high quality content. That doesn't mean that it will be great storytelling, and it doesn't mean that it will be creatively brilliant, but it will look fantastic ultimately. So what does that mean? I don't necessarily think that that's great news for the indie creator, because it just means that the challenge moves from front-end content creation actually to marketing and distribution being more of a challenge. So amidst a lot more content, how are you going to stand out and get heard? And that's where I think other tools are going to come into play. How well do you know your audience? How are you going to reach them? What data you have to analyze them? How are you going to segment them? What's your brand name and reputation? What's the platform that you're going to use? All of these things are going to become important. And so I don't necessarily buy this theory that because it becomes very cheap to create content, that it's suddenly going to be a golden age for creators. What I do think is happening, though, is interesting, is there is no doubt that people's attention spans have fallen. And there is no doubt that less and less people are, in aggregate numbers, going to see films in the cinema and watching long-form content, although there are certain forms of long-form content which are still very popular. And we've seen the emergence of things like microdramas, which if you'd asked me about 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said no one would be remotely interested in that. And in fact, Quibi was an experiment in that managed to blow $1.3 billion in about a year. And now we're seeing a resurgence of that, coming from China. So what does that mean? And I think it means that the way people consume content is changing. The nature of the content that they're consuming is changing. And perhaps the battleground is going to be divided, on the one hand, between what's raw and authentic and real that you can connect with, and on the other hand, what's completely fake and synthetic, created by AI, but where you can play God, where you can play creator, where you can make your own stories. And maybe that's the division that we're going to see. It's a very interesting time. By the way, I don't know anything. No one knows anything. No one knows the way that this is going to go. So this is pure speculation.
Well, I think it's worth looking at, if you have kids, like we're all big grown-ups here, but I have a 13-year-old and 11-year-old boy-girl twins. And it's interesting to watch how they consume content. So they like the short stuff, TikTok and YouTube. But on YouTube, they're actually watching long form, or longer form. They also like going to movies because it's an event. People still need connection, and it's nothing better than watching a film in a theater with a bunch of other people, because it's different than just watching it at home on your television. So I think in the future there's always going to be theater. The people are going to go to theaters to watch movies. It's a communal thing, and some things really need to be shown on screen. Television, the budgets for episodic television are massive now. And they're fantastic. I mean, all of us, we're trying to figure out what we're going to watch. And I'm sure everyone has that conversation. So what are you watching right now, right? Or did you watch this? So there's going to be that. But the short form stuff, I think it also tires out your audience quickly. So people sometimes, again, it's snackable. But again, we're competing against that attention economy. So how much time will you spend on the short form? the medium term or medium form, and maybe the theatrical stuff.
Yeah, I think that's totally right, Phil. The bit I'm worried about, and I think we're going into an existential battle, and none of us actually realize it. So if any of you have engaged with digital avatars, it's a format where you can direct the avatar as to what they do, what they say, and that allows you, as I said, to play God, to play creator. There's a psychological payoff for that is completely different to when you engage with human-driven content, because with human-driven content, you have boundaries. You have real people to deal with. You have limitations to what they will do. And so I see this world where a generation of people are coming up going, that's really nice to play God. I love doing that. Yeah, there's a great sort of kick out of doing that. Why do I want to engage with real human content? And I'm worried about that. I'm very deeply worried about that. I don't know how that plays out.
All right, so this will be my final question, and then we're going to open it up to the audience so everyone can participate. So creators, given everything that we talked about today, how do creators protect their value? What should they be thinking about going forward?
I mean, I would say it's a tough question because, first of all, creators, the stuff that comes out of people's brains is amazing, right? So you have to be very careful, and I'm seeing a lot of it. I can tell pretty quickly when someone's used AI to write something. It's pretty, not always, but most cases I can tell. It's I can tell the way it's been regurgitated. So, you think about some of the great things out there. There's no way at this point in time that AI is going to create it. It's still, it's going to make, creativity is not going to go away. What comes out of people's brains, like I said before, is pretty amazing. It comes from experience. It comes from emotion. AI doesn't have emotion. It doesn't have sort of feeling and relevance in a way. It's just, again, it's kind of regurgitating what it's pulled in. So the reality is there's always going to be a creativity. It will be a tool that will help with creativity. It'll speed things up. It'll make it cheaper. You'll make a $50 million movie, or a $5 million movie will look like a $50 million movie. So again, I right now it's a productivity tool in my opinion. I mean, that's how you use it. But creativity we're always going to have emotions, art. Again, AI will create art. But what you should try to do, you should go home tonight and you should try to make it hallucinate. That's kind of we have a game, some of my colleagues and I, we try to figure out how can we make it hallucinate and give us fake answers or come up with crazy pictures and stuff. And you can do it. You just have to figure out, again, I'm sort of like a prompt geek. I talk a lot about prompts, but my goal is to always trick the AI right now to figure out if it'll spew out something that just doesn't make any sense. And it happens all the time. For example, I'm an investment banker. I do a lot of I create these confidential investment memorandums. It's called a SIM. So I took sort of a draft SIM. I just sort of out of curiosity plopped it into one of the engines, and it couldn't actually spit out what I wanted. It could not actually do it. So I was like, okay, there's hope for jobs in investment banking or law. And same with contracts. It doesn't really give you exactly what you need. It will, a couple more years, it will. But right now, so again, I think, my takeaway is figure out how to create prompts and figure out how to trick it right now. It'll make you an expert in something.
So, big picture. The way we tell stories has always evolved as technology has evolved. Thousands of years ago, we used chalk to draw on walls, and that was the way we told stories. And then over time, new technologies allowed us to tell stories in more and more powerful ways. Radio, film, streaming, these were all new formats that came along. In my opinion, AI is the most profound one ever, and the ultimate result will be incredible. We will be able to tell stories and share information in ways we never dreamed possible. Ours will be the first generation where we will be able to create digital versions of ourselves that can exist in 1,000 years' time and speak to future generations of our families. There's going to be all sorts of applications in healthcare, in education, in dating, in all sorts of areas that we never thought possible. So net, I'm excited about the future and what's possible. As a creator, I think I would be thinking about how do I ensure longevity in what I'm doing? How can I develop properties that have applications across multiple formats? How can I do things where I use all of the tools at my disposals and my creativity to build richer experiences? I think it does put a greater premium on creativity than ever before. But I think for those people who are truly great storytellers and who learn to harness the technology, it's an opportunity like none other that's ever existed.
All right, let's open it up. Who has some questions? Who wants to go first? Yell it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Chris, recovering studio-based executive, used to work at Marvel digital content strategy, and I 100% Tim, what you said. You need to know the finance part of it. You used to run complex financial models as well as look at marketing, sales, content, etc. So that is astounding. I don't know what studio that is.
I'm not going to tell you.
But two quick questions. One is, Sam Altman, a couple years ago, he said this is the age where this might be the first time you have a single member company that can be a unicorn. Do you believe that would be true? How would that be? And you both of you mentioned that, how that would be. And then number two, why is no one talking about the ecological impacts of the 1000x compute that is used every time we prompt?
On the first question, can someone create a unicorn business on their own? I would say hypothetically yes. I heard a story today of a guy who made a vertical, a microdrama, and had something like, I think the number was 30-odd million views of it in the first 3 days since it was launched. So you could see and he's alone. So you could see how it's hypothetically possible, but any real long-term stable business, I think, is going to require more than one person in it. Having said that, a few weeks ago, I used an AI agent for the first time ever, which built an incredible website all on my own, and I don't know how to code. So that was a rather remarkable experience. So it may well be that the tools are going to evolve that make it entirely feasible.
I actually think you can have a studio of one. Eventually, there'll be enough technology that one person, maybe a creator, can actually create something, whether it's a series or multiple series or a Marvel. I think eventually one person can do that on their own using technology.
There was this part two, which was the ecological impact. Why isn't anyone talking about that? I do think that everyone I hear talks about energy consumption and the vast amounts of energy that these models are consuming. We're obviously not in an era politically where it's politically correct to be talking about that. Certainly not the people within Silicon Valley. They're not talking about it. I did see that Elon Grok just announced that his new AI chips consume vastly less energy than any comparative chips do. So I don't know if that's a step change, but you put it.
Yeah, and I think again, the technology, the chips will get more efficient, less energy. Again, it's not the worst when your phone dies. Imagine everything doesn't work. So I think people are thinking about it. So there was a question back here. Yeah. Go for it.
How soon do you think the one-person studio is going to be here?
Bring out that crystal ball. Come on.
Like 10 years. 10 years from now, there'll be some, I don't know,
Depends how you define a studio, right?
Yeah. 10 years, there'll be multi-billion-dollar solo operators.
Hi, my name is Mary, and I work at Immersive and Internet Technology for fan engagement platforms for studios, teams, leagues. So I interact a lot with fans, and I build a lot of audiences, and I really have a show going on the network after the Super Bowl. My question, I have two. One statement, two. Nevada's not the only chip company right now. Intel, I've worked with for a long time, is really on the cutting edge of these chips as well. And I think we're all going to be surprised by that. My question to you all is, everybody's saying AI films, not AI are making films, short format films. How long do you think it's going to be until they make a full feature? And do you think that it can really compete with all the creativity and all the wonderful things that the filmmakers, like myself, produce?
So I'll take this one first and then you can. Look, there are already films that are completely digital, right? In that there are animated films, for example. They are completely digital films. They're not AI-made films. But I could imagine that a digital film could be created by AI pretty quickly. And probably, I was going to say, is already in the works. I think a more profound question is there a point in time, and when will it be, that films will be made, sort of non-animated films will be made without real human characters in them?
Duplications of human character, whether it's an avatar or whether it's a likeness.
Yeah. Yeah, look, what are the barriers? Because we know from a cost point of view that it would cost very little comparatively with traditional content creation to do it. So the barriers are stuff like, the agents, the unions, distribution, all of those sort of issues. So you've got to solve those.
It's already happening. It's all happening now, and it's like all the post companies, all the visual effects companies are starting to use. Remember, their tech stack is still it's normal tech. They're trying to integrate AI elements into it, right? Make it more efficient, cheaper, better.
It's cost effective in some aspects and other aspects it's not. You really can't duplicate that with.
But it's coming. I've seen a lot of incredible technology now replicating things, and even just through the filmmaking process. So I think if you're a studio executive, an agent, you really need to think about where you're going with that. How do you pivot and figure out, how do you make a living? It's changing.
Within the next couple of 5 years, produce and buy the rights into an AI film as opposed to
I think people are still going to buy and sell rights, intellectual property. Just how do you exploit that intellectual property, and what format, what medium, what technology you used to tell a story. It's still a story, right? It has to be engaging. Your audience has to connect with it. Whether you use AI or you're just filming normal sets, it's really about engagement, right? It's like
I suppose part of the question is, is there a moment when the dam breaks? And because the cost differential is so great, everyone goes, oh, well, now we've got to make all of our films entirely with AI and with synthetic characters. And if there is such a moment, I think we are still quite a long way away from that moment. Yeah.
Hi there, my name is Mr. Hussein. I'm a producer of film and television. I have a question which goes back to what you said first about this studio executive who seems to think there's a difference between strategy and finance or money. We often, the loudest voices in the overall debate is often, what's going to happen when this actor can't say their 4 lines, or, what happens then? It's very loud in that sense, and it's very sort of front-end focus, but when you look at the back end and you look at the financials of everything, how do you see this play out when it comes to marketing, purchasing marketing? Like P&A in general is a huge expense for studios. How do you see it when it comes to financing, financial models that should be obsolete by now, but are still available with certain cost structures in the industry? It's almost as if we've gone from, analog to digital, from fax to email, and we have AI now, but on the back end, on the financial front, we're still using Excel. What's happening there?
Well, here, I was going to, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but what's interesting, so we've been in this business a long time. So back when we started making films and stuff, the prints and advertising was massively expensive because you'd have to ship things and you have to make prints. P&A actually is much cheaper now because it's digital, it's targeted, they're using data, they know everything about us, right? So, but the studios still charge like they did 30 years ago. So they still have that massive cost center. But the reality is it's come down to a tenth. I'm making that up, but I'm saying it's probably like a tenth of what it probably used to cost.
Distribution cost hasn't gone down from
well,
a producer's standpoint.
Well,
when you look at the contract,
exactly.
right?
But I'm just saying, but that will change, and that's why Hollywood is under threat because that business model, it's becoming dated. It's just outdated.
Can I give an analogy
Yeah.
just so everyone understands that? So you use a lawyer, probably sometimes. Okay.
Most of the time.
So think about the work that your lawyer does. Now, don't take this the wrong way, Phil.
I'm not
But increasingly, a lot of what lawyers do can be done by large language models. And let's just assume, hypothetically, that your lawyer charges you 100, and it used to cost 90, and they made a profit margin of 10. Let's just assume in a hypothetical new world, it costs them 30. Are they going to charge you 40 for their services today? Or are they going to charge you 100? They're probably still going to charge you 100. And therefore, you don't see the productivity gain as the customer yet. But they are seeing the productivity gain. And that is what is happening with the studio model at the moment.
It's also not super complex. I also just want to add a quick comment about whether we're going to make fully AI-based films and use actors as fully AI-based. That would also mean that agents would be out of business, lawyers would be out of business, managers would be out of business, studio executives would be out of business. I don't think anyone is in a hurry to get to that point.
Yeah, good point.
But they will.
I think they'll reshape.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashish. I've been in the media and entertainment business for over 25 years now. I started my journey in music. So I'm going to throw one question at you all to see how open are you and maybe your cohort or friends in your group. We developed a platform where we now have the ability to make music superstars in 9 months. And we're going to roll out next year where we make content again within 9 months. But then we also manage the talent and the content in a very new and innovative way. And we've already got initial success. Like the kids and mentees who come from our platform within a year have already won Grammys. When we used to tell that about 5 years back, nobody believed us. How open would you and your group be to listen to a story which may seem very like a what if or a far out story? But when we say we've brought in Silicon Valley and Wall Street now into the new entertainment business, how open are people? And we just started our journey because we are raising our next round of capital to close this. It's already partly deployed, but how open would you all be to have a conversation to maybe where we have the opportunity to present, but it's also an opportunity to be a part of something that's coming in tomorrow?
Well, I think if I understand you right, what you have said is that you've created a platform where talent is entirely synthetic.
No.
Okay.
We are actually, it's a social impact project for profit. We are actually creating new jobs in the entertainment business for talent and the ecosystem. And we've already done that. We were funded by the Norwegian government for a decade at the incubator level. We are going to market on a very large scale because it's global, every language, every country, every genre.
But what has this got to do with AI?
So with AI, we use AI tools and agents as part of whether it's creation, whether it's marketing, or in any other capacity. But we are here to also create jobs for people within the entertainment sector going forward. And we've done that. We are just we are scaling it up now. So my question is that we have something to demonstrate that we can do this in 9 months.
Well, this is probably not the right forum to be talking about it because that's not what we're not here as an investor pitch. But the evolution of these sort of platforms is exactly what AI is powering. So great, and you should go and pitch it to everyone you can. Sorry, do you want to take the microphone?
I don't think he's doing that to pitch it because I know his platform and I'm familiar. I think he's just doing it to bring it to the table to make you aware that this is a possibility and it is happening right now.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. It sounds really interesting.
I agree. That's all.
Yeah, look, we sit in a place which is really the intersection of content and technology. So we see things day in, day out. And in fact, the company that I run is creating something entirely new as well. But I think it's more interesting to talk about the fundamental impact that these changes are having on everyone.
No, that's a good example. It's like 9 months from here to there. That's where it's all going. So it sounds fascinating. Happy to speak to you afterwards.